the theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation. The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information. Tonight on Sightings, from the land that first celebrated Halloween, a Scottish castle that's terrorized locals for hundreds of years. Tonight, we send a team of paranormal experts to flesh out the ghosts of Scotland's House of Horror. Then, some claim real-life vampires still exist today. We uncover startling new evidence of the living dead.
Welcome to a special Halloween edition of Sightings. I'm Tim White. Tonight, you'll meet real-life vampires and modern-day witches living right here in the United States. But first, Sightings travels to Stirling Castle, Scotland's reputed House of Horror. This Scottish castle is rumored to be the most haunted place on Earth. It's a fitting beginning, since the origins of Halloween can be traced back to Scotland in the 3rd century.
Scotland, Ireland, and Great Britain were home to the Druids, an ancient people who began the celebration of the holiday we now call Halloween. The Druids believed that Halloween, actually New Year's Eve by their calendar, was the one night of the year when spirits, both good and evil, were allowed to roam the earth.
You're out wandering around on the night on Halloween when the dead are coming back from the grave. You don't want them to recognize you because they might do something to you or they might take you back with them.
Good spirits were welcomed into Druid homes with treats. The evil spirits were kept at bay with bonfires and frightening masks. Later, jack-o'-lanterns were used to keep away evil spirits, but these talismans aren't always successful. At Stirling Castle in Scotland, more than 1,000 people a year report seeing and feeling evil spirits, and not just on Halloween. In fact, since Stirling Castle was first built to defend the Scottish countryside in the 15th century, countless eyewitnesses have reported seeing ghosts, evil spirits, poltergeists, and demons.
I saw a shadow, no face, just a dark shadow in the corner. When I looked back again, there was absolutely nothing.
I've been walking around there at night and I felt a presence. I felt someone behind me.
Wasn't exactly on the ground. She was kind of floating, but she had her face away from me. It definitely was a woman.
Very scary. Makes you cold. I know what I saw.
The best-known ghost in Stirling Castle is the Green Lady. And she is said to be the spirit of a servant maid who saved Mary, Queen of Scots, from death in 1661 when the bed curtains caught fire from a naked flame, a candle held beside the bed. Her spirit is said still to haunt Stirling Castle today.
What we saw just at the corner of the graveyard, up at the foot of the castle wall, was a lady dressed in green. It seemed to be glowing. There were 7 or 8 of us ran up to see what was going on. I mean, covering 25 yards. There was nobody in either direction.
I can't think of any other castle who actually has a photograph of one of the ghosts. And we have a photograph of a Highlander here, marching out of the castle. And you can see straight through him as he comes underneath the archway.
We sent the photograph away and it was tested and it wasn't a double negative. It hadn't been superimposed on top of it or anything. So that's why we believe it was actually a picture of the ghost.
Trying to make contact with ghosts at a site such as Stirling Castle can be approached in several different ways by both scientists and spiritualists. We brought 2 separate investigative teams to Stirling, each operating independently but both with the same end in mind: tangible evidence of at least some of the 100 ghosts rumored to live here. Internationally respected psychical researcher Tony Cornell came to Stirling from Cambridge, searching for scientific evidence.
One thing about the whole psychic field is it's full of contradictions. You can go to one case and say, oh, this is absolute rubbish. This is imagination. This is nonsense. You go to another one and you get a pearl of information. You say, well, we can't ignore this. So I should think, really, I'd say there are such things as ghosts. I've never seen one. I'd very much like to see one. Perhaps I might see one tonight. You never know.
Tony Cornell asked London's premier spiritualist medium, Glyn Edwards, to help him choose a good location for an overnight surveillance.
There's something here. There's definitely something here.
Here? What about over here?
Not so much here. Not so much here.
When we go out on an investigation, the kind of equipment we're taking is purely simply to confirm the physical presence of it. Is it in the mind of the person, or is it a real physical object? So what we do is we take equipment that will record any changes in the physical environment. Sound, sight, heat, geomagnetic changes, any form of change, because we don't know what makes these things occur. So we want to know, if we leave this stuff behind, do ghosts then appear, or do they only appear because there's a human being there? Well, this is the kind of thing we want to confirm with the instrumentation.
Cornell set up an infrared camera and a standard video camera to be left on all night. The next day, the video revealed nothing extraordinary, but the audio portion was startling. No one was in the castle. The lone night watchman was far from the recording site. The nearest road was more than a mile away. Listen again for what sounds like moaning and screaming among the electronic static. Could these be the ghostly voices of Stirling Castle's tortured dead? 2 days after the haunting sounds were recorded, Sightings brought in a second team, comprised of psychics and headed by paranormal researcher Malcolm Robinson. They hoped to find additional evidence of ghost activity. Their investigation took place near the recording site in the castle's old prison, called the Toll Booth.
We go along and investigate these cases, speak with the people involved to ascertain if indeed there are something of a psychic nature happening.
This group of psychic investigators uses a controversial and often dangerous technique called spirit rescue. In a rescue, the psychics attempt to become temporarily possessed by any spirits that may be present. They believe the tortured spirits inside them can then be released into another dimension. On this night, world-renowned psychic Rosemary Todlin claimed one ancient tortured spirit had entered her body.
They were attacking me, they were bringing me back, they were attacking me, they were bringing me back.
Rosemary appeared to be speaking as a centuries-old prisoner who had been tortured in Stirling Castle. While she was in her trance, other psychics attempted to liberate the supposed spirit from her and rid it from the castle.
You might never get another chance. This is your chance. This is your chance. This is your chance to be free once and for all. Spit it out if you have to. This is where you take that step through the door. A bigger door beyond even that. A much greater door, filled with light.
That I actually felt escape. I felt it physically and I felt it emotionally. And the pressure began to just evaporate from me.
Do you feel that the spirit has been released then from this room?
He's no longer here as far as I'm concerned.
So you're quite sure of this?
Yes.
Yeah. He wanted out, and he got an out. He got that door that he wanted.
Yeah.
And there's no way he'd come back here.
We know there were torture chambers in the Toll Booth. And indeed, if they followed the practice of the country at that particular time, and indeed over many, many years, then there's no doubt there were thumb screws and practices within that toll booth to force confessions from the unfortunate inhabitants.
I think what we've had here is a little bit dubious. I mean, I get the feeling of, no, it's too melodramatic. Sincere, yes, but I don't think it was correct. But that's not saying that there aren't things in Stirling Castle. Of course there are, because many sane and sensible people have walked around and seen these things.
There may be conflicting views on the merits of spirit rescue, but Malcolm Robinson and his team of psychics believe that there is now one less ghost in Stirling Castle, that they have relieved the suffering of one tortured spirit in Scotland's House of Horrors.
Coming up next, some claim real-life vampires still exist today. We uncover startling new evidence of the living dead. And later, a revealing interview with a modern-day witch.
Sightings is brought to you by multi-grain Cheerios. With toasted corn, wheat, rice, and oats, nutrition never tasted so good.
Look at him. George Carey eating a multi-grain cereal. Can you believe it? George never liked the taste of anything nutritious until he heard there was something new from Cheerios. Multi-grain Cheerios has the nourishment of multi-grains, but the way Cheerios mixes together toasted corn, wheat, rice, and oats, nutrition never tasted so good. Multi-grain Cheerios. Nutrition never tasted so good.
Forget about tug of war with your pantyhose. Nothing's more fitting than Legs Classics.
Nothing beats a great pair of legs.
It's never fun to eat and run, to rush and eat too fast, 'cause you know it's gonna catch up with you.
For acid indigestion or heartburn with headache, nothing's faster than Alka-Seltzer.
Get yourself some Alka-Seltzer and you'll feel better fast.
This Sunday, the Bundys vote for the first time.
Not there, that's the bathroom. That's where he makes his best decisions.
On an all-new Married with Children, Sunday.
On election night, join hosts Jason Priestley and Luke Perry for a night of great shows and outrageous surprises. The Fox Comedy Party, Tuesday.
On Halloween, the streets are filled with ghosts and goblins and vampires. But Sightings has discovered that at least some of those vampires aren't out there dressing up for just one holiday. We found people who are so obsessed with vampires that they've chosen to live as though they are real-life vampires.
Do vampires really exist? Bela Lugosi's theatrical vision of the vampire debuted in the film classic Dracula. Lugosi is the most popular image that we have of the nocturnal beast that preys on the living. Our reaction is a mixture of fascination and revulsion as Dracula thirsts for human blood.
Let me live, please! Punish me, torture me, but let me live!
Bram Stoker's Dracula from Francis Ford Coppola is the newest of nearly 2,000 Dracula movies produced worldwide, evidence of our continuing fascination with the undead.
The undead would be someone who is pronounced dead, and at certain times the dead corpse reanimates and goes out with a thirst for human blood.
Recent studies by researchers at 2 major universities in the United States show that nearly half the adult population of the United States believe that the world of the undead, in some form, is real. And that same research shows that our obsession with vampires is rising dramatically.
The vampire represents the darker side of human instinct. The vampire represents the semi-animal-like quality that is part of our nature, but which in the cultural process of growth and development, we have had to forego. Ordinary people go see vampires because they identify with a certain collection of characteristics that they don't live out, but which are ignited in what we would call their unconscious.
The Dracula character in Bram Stoker's novel was based on the 15th century Romanian warlord Vlad the Impaler. Stoker took the ancient myths about this notorious killer and added elements of the supernatural.
Rosemary, the historical Vlad the Impaler, he was not a vampire.
Vlad Tepes was not a vampire. He was a real person, a 15th century Wallachian warlord who was a very cruel and despotic man. And Bram Stoker took him as the historical model for Count Dracula. There's only one existing account of him drinking blood, and it was the blood of one of his impaled victims. This does not make him a vampire.
Do you really believe, Rosemary, that there are vampires, real vampires?
I do believe in the possibility of real vampires. I would call a real vampire a non-physical being, perhaps the spirit of a dead or some other kind of being that would attack the living during the day or the evening, almost what we would call a biting poltergeist.
Around the world, there are many cultures that believe that there are individuals who can fly out at night in some form. There is certainly a possibility that there are many other forms of energy many other forms of power that we just don't understand, that may form the basis of the vampire legend and may actually form some kind of power for real vampires.
As people grow more frightened and as the normal structures of life, society, economics become more uncertain, people get very fascinated by the supernatural. And I would place vampires in a class like that.
Sightings has discovered a subculture of people who worship and emulate the vampire lifestyle. Are these self-proclaimed vampires true devotees, or do they merely have a morbid fascination with death? There's a growing body of evidence to suggest that these modern-day vampires may do more than simply pose as blood-drinking members of the undead.
I believe in another type of vampire I call the living vampire. They'll go around attacking people, biting them on the neck, and drinking their blood. And to my way of thinking, they're every bit as dangerous as the old legendary type vampire.
In Chicago, Sightings met one member of the vampire subculture who insists he is a real-life vampire.
Most people consider me a vampire because I'm a blood drinker. I use blood to ensure my immortality in this world.
Vlad is a very interesting vampire. He's not quite like any other vampire that has ever contacted me or that I've ever studied. Vlad believes that there is a special kind of reaction he gets from the small amounts of blood that he takes.
Blood has a lot of powerful symbolism and has since ancient times. It's the life force, and anytime you consume the life force, then you enhance your own vitality. And blood also has an erotic aspect to it as well.
I feel Vlad may very well be getting some kind of special insight, some kind of special feeling from blood.
Did any of the people you spoke with claim to be dead people who were kept alive by drinking blood?
None. In fact, almost all of them apologized for not being dead.
Vlad's lifestyle may seem more theater than reality, with his $1,000 handmade porcelain fangs and sculpted coffin. But the practice of blood drinking is not an act. Vlad believes it's proof of his commitment to vampirism. But to outsiders, it appears as nothing more than a desperate attempt for attention.
What I do and why I've done it is my, I really don't care if any of you believe it or not. That's your problem.
Our long-standing fascination with vampires is well documented, but few people have carried out their fascination, drinking blood and living as vampires. What sends someone over the edge? Is it simply a need to stand out from the crowd? A deep-rooted desire for immortality? Or an unnatural need to participate in a world of evil?
To dream about vampires, to be attracted to vampires, for the culture to thrill to the idea of vampires is simply nature.
Although it may seem like pure theatrics to us, the self-proclaimed vampires that we interview insist that they have a real dedication to vampirism. Behavior experts argue that their dedication could be masking a psychological disorder, and they're asking the question, what deep need are people like these fulfilling by drinking blood and living as vampires?
Coming up, a startling sightings report on witches in America. Do they exist in your town, and do they threaten your family? A revealing interview with a real-life witch, next.
To me, toothpaste was just a habit, and I bought whatever was on sale. When we were on vacation, I tried the Arm & Hammer Dental Care toothpaste, and I thought it was dynamite. Such a clean, healthy feeling, like the dentist just cleaned my teeth. And then I read that more dentists recommend Arm & Hammer than any other baking soda toothpaste. When I come out of the dentist office, my teeth feel as perfect as they're going to be. And that's the feeling I get every time I brush. And that's a wonderful feeling.
Get Arm & Hammer Dental Care for that healthy, fresh from the dentist feeling of clean.
All right, Gladys, from the top. Though we know you love butter, Fleischmann's found something other. It's Move Over Butter. All the smoothness of butter with a rich, creamy flavor. Move Over Butter. It's either Move Over Butter or nothing at all. With sweet, creamy buttermilk, zero cholesterol. Move Over Butter.
New Move Over Butter from the folks at Fleischmann's.
Bill Clinton's economic plan, endorsed by over 600 economists, including 10 Nobel Prize winners, as the best hope for reviving the nation's economy. More than 400 of America's most respected business leaders say the Clinton plan will create jobs. A panel of independent experts convened by Time magazine concludes that Clinton's plan has the best solutions to our economic problems. And now even the author of Ross Perot's plan has endorsed Bill Clinton for president. Let's get our economy moving again.
Cops has taken you on high-speed chases before, but you've never experienced a ride like this. Cops in Denver, an all-new location and all-new episode. Then, Code 3 shows you amazing rescues and real-life heroes. This week, go on location where stuntmen risk their lives for movie magic. Witness a daring stunt that takes a wrong turn, trapping the driver underwater. Be there as his crew scrambles to save him before it's too late. An all-new Code 3, Saturday after Cops.
He's back.
Are you Homie D. Cloud?
No, I'm Harry D. Frog.
Damon Wayans returns on an all-new and living color, Sunday.
Dr. Fink says he's for health care reform. Mr. Hyde has accepted thousands of dollars from the medical establishment. Dr. Fink says he opposes a woman's right to choose. Mr. Hyde supports selective abortions for improperly developing fetuses. Dr. Fink says he's for accessible health care. Mr. Hyde single-handedly worked to block the bone marrow transplant unit at Akron Children's Hospital. Don't risk electing Mr. Hyde. Elect a state representative who cares about us, Karen Doty.
The Salem witch trials were a notorious part of our Puritan past, but witches and witchcraft are still alive and well in America today. Modern-day witches are a far cry from the evil broomstick-riding hags of popular culture. Today's witches are eager to dispel the myths that have plagued what they consider to be their religion.
If you're looking for pointed hats and green faces, you'll have better luck at your front door handing out Halloween candy to the neighborhood kids. Selena Fox and her followers are the real thing, witches who make a point of celebrating nature instead of casting spells and concocting evil curses.
With no beginning.
Calling herself a Wiccan priestess, from the Old English word Wicca, meaning witch or wizard, Fox practices what she calls a religion from rural Iowa County in Wisconsin. But the intolerance she finds today is not so different from that of the citizens of another small community 300 years ago, Salem, Massachusetts.
There was an accepted form of religious and political practice. Those who deviated from that, especially women who were outspoken and independent, were killed.
Here in Salem in 1692, 19 people were hanged, and one man was pressed to death because he would not plead guilty or not guilty.
William LeMoy heads up the Essex Institute Library in Salem, which houses hundreds of actual court documents from the witch trials. Based on weak testimony supplied by hysterical witnesses, over 200 citizens of Salem were accused of being witches.
Petty jealousies, land disputes, grievances held for decades would all be brought into play. I think the underlying context for what happened was fear. When fear is the fundamental emotion, you can expect irrational behavior. And when you get a group acting irrationally, watch out.
Joining us now from her farm in Black Earth, Wisconsin, is Selena Fox, a modern-day witch who prefers to be called a Wiccan minister. Selena, welcome to Sightings.
Thanks, Tim. Happy Halloween.
And happy Halloween to you, too. Selena, do you mind being called a witch?
I've used the word witch to describe myself and my practice of Wiccan spirituality, but I also use some other terms that are perhaps more specific about what I do. Wiccan minister is one, nature priestess is one, and those terms are more specific about the kinds of things that I'm involved in, which is spiritual ministry.
What do you think is the biggest misconception that most folks have about witches like you?
We are not involved with Satanism or the practice of evil. This is against our values, our ethics.
Certainly back in the early days in Salem, witches were persecuted. Does that persist? Is there persecution now?
Persecution has not ended in America. in other parts of the world, for people that are involved not only in witchcraft, but other nature religions. I would like to see persecution and intolerance against our people end.
Most people have stereotypes, Selena, about witches, people like you. Where do those stereotypes come from?
Some of the stereotypes that we have today around the word witch really come right out of Wizard of Oz. The word witch is being used by people who are practicing a religion that do not look in any way like the Wicked Witch of the West, and certainly don't have those kinds of practices.
Well, here it is, Halloween now, Selena. Why is Halloween so important to witches like yourself?
Halloween is our new year. We not only pay our respects for the dead, especially family and friends that we have known and loved in this life, but it's a time of looking ahead to the year to come.
Selena Fox, thank you, and happy Halloween. We'll be back with more Sightings in just a moment.
To report your paranormal experience, call the Sightings hotline at 1-900-740-SIGHT. That's 1-900-740-SITE. Each call 75 cents a minute. Average call lasts 2 minutes, and you must be 18 years or older. Again, the Sightings hotline is 1-900-740-7483.
The worst is measuring the right dose. Too much. You mean too little. The best, try Minig's little cup. And dosages by weight. And by age. It's the best.
Give us your worst. We'll give you our best. Improve Triaminic with the all-new True Dose system.
Smart.
Life is just a bowl of cherries. Don't take it serious. Life's too mysterious. You work, you save,
Today, women need all the comfort and support they can get. Is it any wonder so many women choose Playtex as the bras they love to live in?
Life is just a bowl of cherries. So live and laugh at it all.
With its V6 engine, smooth, quiet ride, and easy front-wheel drive handling, the newest Mercury will, quite frankly, remind you of some car you've driven before. That's what makes it so different. Introducing Mercury Villager. If it was just another minivan, it wouldn't be a Mercury. All this and the quality of a Mercury.
The worst, the middle of the night. Oh, that terrible cough. His poor little throat. The best, I think, new Triaminic. That extra coating. No question.
Give us your worst. We'll give you our best. Improve Triaminic with twice the soothing and coating ingredients.
It works.
You may not believe in werewolves, but next you'll witness an exorcism where cameras captured a frightening transformation on a special presentation of Sightings.
Join us next time for new investigations into the unexplained. For Sightings, I'm Tim White. Good night.
Tomorrow, witness a high-speed chase more exciting than anything you've ever seen in the movies because it's real. Cops in Denver, an all-new location, an all-new episode tomorrow. Now, stay tuned for more Sightings next.
The following program deals with controversial subjects. The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation. The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information. Tonight on Sightings, some claim this man is a real live werewolf, and those who were savagely attacked believe it's true.
He's seen the transfiguration of a man into a wolf.
Then, this woman captured eerie images on film that have baffled scientists. Some say they're UFOs, some say they're ghosts. Our experts attempt to unravel the mystery.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. In a new investigation, we found that werewolves seem to be more than just fantasy. They could be victims of what's known as lycanthropy. Without warning, victims say that they're turned into raging animals. The cause? Well, some believe it's a mental illness. Others, that it's the result of demonic possession. Rational men who turn into irrational, salivating beasts may be Hollywood's version of a classic werewolf. But real werewolves aren't created by makeup artists. To outsiders, this small English town of Southend-on-Sea seems quiet, picturesque, even quaint. But there are secrets here, an evil that lies just beneath the surface. You can't see what invisible danger lurks here until Bill Ramsey tells you his story.
The story began when I was 9 years old. It was a very warm summer's evening. Suddenly the air went very cold. There was a terrible stench in the air, and I just flew into the most horrendous rage that my mother and father came out to see what the hell was going on. And the fence post was 2 or 3 inches square. It was set into concrete in the ground. I pulled it out and smashed it on the floor till it broke. Well, I don't think I could do that now. My mother and father just couldn't make out why their little 9-year-old boy suddenly started to act virtually like an animal in the garden.
Bill Ramsey thought it was an isolated childhood event. He grew up, married, had children. But then the violent episode from his childhood came back to haunt the adult. Strange animal behavior would overtake him, violence he couldn't control or explain. At first he could keep it secret, but then one day, Bill Ramsey bit someone in public, and the animal inside him wasn't a secret anymore. Soon after, Ramsey attacked a nurse at Southend Hospital.
I just had the feeling that ultimately I would kill somebody.
Then, without reason or warning, Bill Ramsey attempted the murder of a police officer. He was locked up, and his life became a tangle of police, psychiatrists, and reporters.
I envisaged being in prison for the rest of my life, or in a secure mental hospital the rest of my life, for something I knew I would never be responsible for.
The unassuming man with the tragic secret was famous now as the werewolf of Southend-on-Sea.
What was causing it? I was literally, felt like just committing suicide.
Word of Ramsey's bizarre behavior spread as far as rural Connecticut, where authors Lorraine and Ed Warren were intrigued. The Warrens have documented over 7,000 cases of the paranormal, and for the past 24 years, lectured on demonology at major universities worldwide.
Like I told Lorraine, I said, Lorraine, I'm not going to go before the public and start talking about a werewolf. I said, it's going to be interesting to go there, see what we can do to help this man, but that's about it.
He felt that that was just stretching our credibility just a little too far to believe in werewolves. But I believe.
The Warrens went to England to investigate Ramsey's case. They had many questions. Was Ramsey a common criminal? Was he mentally ill? Or was he really a werewolf, possessed by what they believed was the devil? They spoke with Inspector Tony Belford, who was there the night Ramsey tried to murder a fellow officer.
What I actually saw that night, I couldn't really understand what it was. All I knew that it was something I'd never witnessed before. It was not natural behavior.
That night, Bill Ramsey became confused and lost control. He picked up a prostitute and without explanation drove her to the police station.
So I took the prostitute inside, leaving Sergeant Terry Fisher out in the yard with Ramsey.
He had these mad, staring eyes and this maniacal expression. That's all I can describe it as. The worst thing was what he was saying, and it was said in a very malevolent way. And I'll quote from the report I made shortly afterwards. He was saying, "The devil is in me. When the devil is in me, I am strong. I'm going to kill you. I am strong, and you are going to die."
Ramsey lunged for the sergeant's throat. Fisher, unarmed, responded with a powerful knee to the groin.
He sort of went, "Oh," and crouched down, and he shrugged it off again and became stronger.
And when I came out into the yard, I saw Terry Fisher on the floor, just over in this location, with Bill Ramsey sitting on top of him with his hands around his throat.
Then there were bobbies that came to their sergeant's aid, and he threw them off, in their words, like they were matchsticks.
A little voice back here said, "Terence, you've come unstuck this time."
And when you see the size of this ex-police officer, you'll say to yourself, what scared him so much? Why this one experience? Because he's seen something that few people ever see. He's seen the transfiguration of a man into a wolf.
It took 5 officers to subdue Bill Ramsey, who was not under the influence of any drugs.
When I say he snarled and he growled, it was an impression of his lips turning up and showing his teeth. And I can recollect actually saying at the time in the reports that I filed that he took on the appearance of a mad dog.
Like a caged animal, Ramsey tried to escape.
His head, right arm, up to his shoulder was outside this hole. It's difficult to actually visualize a head and an arm out there, but I can assure you I saw it, 5 or 6 firemen saw it, a doctor saw it, and I would suggest up to 7 or 8 policemen saw it. None of which could believe what was actually seen.
Finally, Ramsey was heavily sedated, soaked with liquid soap, and squeezed back through the hole. Badly shaken, Officer Fisher took early retirement. Inspector Belford was left to account for Ramsey's bizarre behavior.
I submit this report for your information, and to have recorded the fact that it is in my opinion that this man will, if not controlled, end up causing fatal or serious injury to some person.
Criminal charges were not filed. Instead, Bill Ramsey was committed to a mental hospital.
Everybody thought I had a mental problem. It just didn't seem right. But I had no other answer. I couldn't say, well, it's not a mental problem, so you do this normally then, do you? Does everybody, is this normal behaviour? Of course it was a mental problem. Where else could they send me? There was nowhere else.
After psychiatric tests failed to pinpoint the source of Ramsey's behavior, he was released.
What is left? The paranormal, the unknown. And that's where we come in.
Warrens told me that it wasn't a mental illness. I had no mental illness. I was possessed, demonically possessed with a wolf spirit. Oh, God. I've heard it all. And he kind of closed the evening with, would you come to the USA and be exercised? Exercise? Come on. There's some absolute rubbish they were giving me here. But maybe. I've been through all the other avenues, remember.
Coming up next, the shocking real-life exorcism when our frightening werewolf story continues.
The lips rolled up, the teeth protruded, and he tried to fight.
Sightings is brought to you by new Move Over Butter. All the smoothness and rich, creamy flavor of butter and 0 cholesterol. Move Over Butter from the folks at Fleischmann's.
Though we know you love butter, Fleischmann's found something other. It's Move Over Butter. All the smoothness of butter with a rich, creamy flavor. New Move Over Butter.
New Fleischmann's Move Over Butter.
Forget about tug of war with your pantyhose. Nothing's more fitting than Legs Classics.
Nothing beats a great pair of legs.
Basically, I thought all toothpaste were the same. But then on a visit to my grandmother's, I tried her Arm & Hammer dental care. And wow, it was a special feeling, like a burst of clean. My mouth felt so clean and so healthy that it was just like leaving the dentist office. Then I heard that more dentists recommend Arm & Hammer than any other baking soda toothpaste. I see my dentist really often, but now I get that fresh from the dentist feeling every single time I brush.
Get Arm & Hammer dental care for that healthy, fresh from the dentist feeling of clean.
You're invited to the Fox Comedy Party, election night on Fox.
Bill Ramsey was skeptical about the assertion that his werewolf behavior was caused by demonic possession. But ultimately, in desperation, he made the decision to go to America for an exorcism.
A British newspaper paid Bill Ramsey $20,000 for the rights to his story. His private ordeal was now a public spectacle to be played out in rural Connecticut. It was here that the Warrens introduced him to Bishop Richard McKenna, a priest who had performed the dangerous ritual of exorcism many times before.
He needed to be exercised, no question about that. I would think that being possessed by the devil is the worst evil that could befall anyone.
I didn't know what to expect. And when you're entering a realm of the unknown, you're obviously very, very scared.
Since Ramsey had shown superhuman strength, 6 bodyguards with stun guns protected the bishop. Rare still photos are the only visual record of the exorcism.
Lord permitted, the devil could easily kill the exorcist. As I proceeded with the prayers, he didn't seem to be himself. It was just some other person were taking over him. He himself seemed to almost go into a kind of a daze.
I remember him coming to me, at me with that stole, placing it on my head, and it's as if he'd hit me with a hammer almost, because I just did not know anything after that.
It started from behind him, and the muscles in the back of the neck all began to enlarge, and the ears began to point, and he howled.
Speak, devil. Be gone in the name of God. Leave him alone. Go back to how we came from. God.
Then the hands clawed in such a manner that no human could claw like that.
He had begun to make the signs of the cross on his forehead and on his breast, and then he would violently react and snap his hand at me, and he snarled like an animal.
The lips rolled up, the teeth protruded, and he tried to fight.
How many of you are ready to come for what keeps you here? Be gone, Satan. Leave him alone. When the devil did leave him, he came to himself.
As I came out the exorcism, you feel that you're a new person.
The man was freed. The man was freed.
I felt I wanted to kiss him, kiss Bishop McKenna, because what he'd done. I believe that I was ultimately possessed by the devil, yeah.
Was Bill Ramsey mentally ill or the victim of demonic possession? No one knows for sure, but one thing is clear. What the police, psychiatrists, and his family couldn't help, the exorcism did. Ramsey returned home to England, and in the 3 years since his exorcism, Bill Ramsey has not had a single violent episode.
Coming up next, this woman captured eerie images on film that have baffled scientists. Some say they're UFOs, some say they're ghosts. Our experts attempt to unravel the mystery.
Since I graduated, I've done telemarketing. I was a bicycle messenger. I hope in the future to get a job in my field, and from there start my own life, but there are no jobs.
And there's yogurt here.
I feel trapped having to live at home. The Republicans really do not know what the average American is going through. The Democratic plan is the plan that makes the most sense. I really believe that the Democrats would bring a lot of hope and enthusiasm to this country.
Imprisoned by sinus pain, trapped by sinus pressure, it takes the power of Sanyutab to release the pressure and stop the pain. That's something Sanyutab's done for more people for more years than any other sinus medicine. Sanyutab, relief for prisoners of sinus pain.
Release me and let me live again.
The folks in Lake Edna want to know the secret of new improved KFC Extra Tasty Crispy. How chicken so crispy outside could be so tender and juicy inside. The secret is a special KFC process called double breading. Chicken and dip it in uniquely, not once, but twice, leaving the inside tender and juicy and the outside crispy and crunchy. Any questions?
Hurry and try new improved Extra Tasty Crispy from KFC.
He's back.
Are you Homie D. Cloud?
No, I'm Harry D. Frog.
Damon Wayans returns on an all-new and living color Sunday.
The only issues in this congressional campaign are the economy and jobs. As a county commissioner, Bob Gardner helped create more than 3,000 jobs. He knows how it's done. Eric Fingerhut has never created jobs and doesn't understand how it's done. In the state Senate, he voted for 31 job-killing regulatory bills. Now he stands proudly against the Ohio Term Limits Initiative. The only job Fingerhut is interested in is his own. Elect Bob Gardner to Congress.
Almost every time Massachusetts housewife Stella Lansing takes a picture, she gets unexplained images on her film. Using any type of camera at all, with any type of film or videotape, Stella Lansing records what appear to be images from another dimension.
We've all had strange things show up on our pictures. Glitches, scratches, strange patterns of light and shadow. Weird images are bound to show up every once in a while. But researchers in the field of paranormal photography believe some of these photos are actually a window to the supernatural. For 30 years, Stella Lansing has captured bizarre anomalies on film and videotape. Nearly every single time she takes a picture or shoots home movies, strange images appear. Here, a severed arm mysteriously floating in front of this woman's head. Strange facial lesions mark her own self-portrait. A mysterious monk appeared while she was taping a television special about Queen Elizabeth. There's a series of unique clock-like images that defy cinema and time logic, and were unheard of in the field of paranormal photography, until now.
I probably didn't realize that it was any kind of a gift or anything in the beginning. I was just trying to get proof of what I was seeing. I tried with every kind of camera I had, and as this went along, I asked someone if only I had a movie camera, and they let me borrow theirs, and that's when I started to get my very first nighttime sighting.
There is usually a rational and mechanical explanation for what produced a given image on the film, as opposed to a supernatural answer.
The idea that Stella was experiencing more than just mechanical failure first occurred to her while shooting these high-tension wires near her home in Massachusetts.
Suddenly, this burst of light came off of the knoll where I was just facing there and shot up. It seemed like in that direction, toward the moon, in the direction of the moon, south, southwest. And as it did, all these multicolored lights were flashing, and that's when I got this object that looks like arms sticking out.
A frame-by-frame analysis of Stella's Super 8 film revealed astonishing images. A group of 4 men, which photo experts have named the occupants. In the 20 years since this Super 8 image was captured, photo analysts have debated its authenticity. I took the footage of the occupants to the Brooks Institute, the prestigious photography study center in Santa Barbara, California.
What could affect a photographic negative like that?
A stray light entering from a small hole near the camera lens, possibly some kind of after effect when the film was taken out of the camera, some kind of a very fine, hard, and short light strike that produced those patterns.
8mm motion pictures is so small, frame by frame, that it's virtually impossible to fake them without a sophisticated laboratory and animators. You'd have to run a Walt Disney studio to do it. A person like Stella Lansing could not do it.
Even more mysterious than Stella's Super 8 image of the occupants is what happens when the film is transferred to videotape. Then, unidentified voices suddenly appear. Analysts could not explain how Stella's silent 8mm film with no soundtrack could suddenly produce sound, replayed here at a slower speed. With no technical knowledge of photography herself, Stella searched for someone who could explain the images in her photos. Dr. Bertold Schwartz, noted psychiatrist and author, took her case and has been studying Stella Lansing for 21 years.
When I first met Stella, I became more and more curious, because here is a human being that gets these things, the kind of things you read about in the paper, but is seldom documented as one would prefer.
In fact, it was Stella's meticulous records that set her apart. For 30 years, she had kept detailed logs of all her photos and films.
As one went over the notes that she had laboriously collected through the years, she'd write on the film boxes, she'd write on scraps of paper, she'd collect clippings, and you put it all together, the story seems to hang together. And we have to ask the question, how do we explain it? Questions and questions and questions, but then it becomes fascinating, a real mystery of the first order.
Some of Stella's most bizarre images are referred to as the clock series, images captured on film that surround such things as airplanes and church steeples, appearing at night and during the day. Strangely, when the single lights of the clock formations are enlarged, they reveal spacecraft-like images. And even more astonishing, these so-called spacecraft extend beyond the edge of the film frame.
It overlaps the frames. Indeed, the time-space barrier is smashed in some way by this housewife.
Ran the clockwork patterns on Stella's photographs. What do you make of them?
I can find some rationale in calling them a mechanical problem in the camera. Some of the consistencies from frame to frame indicate that the exposure was produced not in the camera, but somewhere as a light leak entering the camera, or some other pattern. The pattern appears to be very similar, but not always the same.
But Stella Lansing still got the clock-like formations when she used 6 different cameras, 2 different types of film, inside, outside, in daylight, and at night, in 5 different states. She even succeeded when her camera was switched for another at the last moment. So could Stella Lansing be somehow affecting her film subconsciously? To find out, Dr. Schwartz has subjected Stella to psychiatric evaluations and brainwave analyses. In 1971, Dr. Schwartz himself filmed this breakthrough field study. He and Stella journeyed from Springfield, Massachusetts to Munson Hill, to the power lines where Stella first photographed the occupants.
Stella's saying, so they're going to come, they always do. And by golly, we see these 2 orange or reddish-orange globes. First there's 1, then there's 2, they're blinking, they seem to hop around. Aim my camera at it, I hope I'm capturing this, I don't know. What does this mean?
This causes me to believe that either there's some type of mind projection, either she's somehow projecting these images onto the film from her imagination, from her own mind, or that another theory, which is certainly not provable, not by me anyway, is could things exist in another dimension in a borderline way where they flicker in and out of our dimension?
21 years later, we accompanied Stella to Munson Hill, the site of her original photo expedition. We wanted to see if Stella would get the same paranormal images under our own controlled conditions.
There's some kind of interaction here. Whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but for some reason, it's just like when I'm driving, I seem to know where to look. I mean, I don't have eyes in the back of my head, but I seem to know when to look somewhere, and I look like that, and there it is.
Stella also took still photos of our Sightings producer and camera crew, and surprising results occurred at the Palmer Photo Lab, where Stella's film was developed. The first thing their technician ruled out was light flare.
This is what's interesting right here. This seems to have solidity to it here. It's almost an oval shape. And right here also has the same thing. That is really strange.
It has all the attributes of classic camera flare.
But all the light was behind Stella, not behind the subject.
There appears to be some sort of a light source just breaking over her shoulder.
But it would be visible to the naked eye. It would be like a flashbulb or something.
It could have been a very transitory event, very short in duration, where the human eye and brain in combination just didn't recognize it, but the film did for whatever.
I believe in what I'm doing, and I know there's something out there, and nobody can tell me it isn't.
Debate continues on what is actually appearing in Stella's films. We'll keep you updated on the results of future investigations. With the study of paranormal phenomena in its infancy, we may never know for sure what's really appearing in Stella Lansing's films. Are the images ghosts, UFOs, or some unexplained byproduct of Stella's own mind?
Coming up, an exclusive Sightings update when we revisit a Texas family threatened by a sinister apparition.
Our main objective when we designed our new front-wheel drive minivan was to make certain that it was the only vehicle in its class, period. Introducing Mercury Villager. If it was just another minivan, it wouldn't be a Mercury. All this and the quality of a Mercury.
Upon learning Little Caesars is offering 2 pizzas for $5.99, the mind enters 5 stages. Shock, disbelief, confusion, denial, and finally, acceptance. Now let's watch the subject registering denial again in extreme slow motion. 2 medium pizzas with cheese and pepperoni or your favorite topping, all for $5.99. It's a toozy-doozy of a deal. Toozy-doozy.
Life is just a bowl of cherries. Don't take it serious. Life's too mysterious. You work, you save, you work.
Today, women need all the comfort and support they can get.
Is it any wonder so many women choose Playtex as the bras they love to live in?
Life is just a bowl of cherries, so live and laugh at it all.
On a recent edition of Sightings, we brought you the story of the Lamonis family of Dallas, Texas, who said they were being terrorized by a ghostly entity.
To rid their house of the ghostly presence, the Lamonises participated in a seance. Our team of psychics appeared to make contact, but since then, the entity has returned.
We have decided to move. Things are still happening here in the house.
She knows that I don't want her terrified, and I don't want the children scared to death. And it's best that they move.
The Lamonises can't live with the fear any longer. They've moved out. But no one knows what awaits the next family that lives in this Dallas house.
To report your sighting, call 1-900-740-SIGHT. Each call, 75 cents a minute. Average call lasts 2 minutes, and you must be 18 years or older. Again, the Sightings hotline, 1-900-740-7483. On the next Sightings, a frightening in-depth report on America's epidemic of evil. From serial killers to satanic worship, we uncover the sinister truth behind this deadly lust for evil that could threaten your family. On the next Sightings.
Join us next time for new investigations. For Sightings, I'm Tim White. Good night.
Tomorrow, see the daring rescue of a movie stuntman on an all-new Code 3 right after Cops. And tomorrow morning, don't miss the sneak preview of X-Men, an all-new animated event.
Subjects. The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation. The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information. Tonight on Sightings, many thought the mystery of the English crop circles was a hoax, but our ongoing investigation has uncovered startling evidence that may prove extraterrestrial contact.
This intelligence is almost certainly not human.
Then, what sinister spell has cursed the British royalty for 600 years? We uncover the royal curse tonight.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. Since the early 1980s, over 2,000 crop circle formations have been discovered in 30 countries, and new ones are being reported every month. Theories about where they come from range from weather anomalies to extraterrestrials to crazed hedgehogs doing a mating dance. Well, obviously some theories are more credible than others, but the fact remains that something is happening in fields around the world that no one can fully explain. The stories of unexplained designs appearing mostly in the farm fields of England hit an all-time high in 1990. News media from around the world were quick to hail these enigmatic circles and lines as the strangest scientific discovery of the 20th century. For a brief period, crop circles became the darling of popular culture. But then, two hoaxers stepped forward to claim that they had created the crop circles. And just as quickly as the phenomenon began, the media dropped the crop circle story. The hoax theory stuck, and soon the only people still interested were hardcore theorists and scientists.
Initially, these were simple single circles, but in 1990, the patterns became much more complex, dramatically so, and blew right out of the water some of the early theories.
The early formations were the size of a domestic room. Now you have formation which are almost the size of Central Park, so that we have enormous growth, both in complexity and in size and in numbers.
Michael Green is an archaeologist and architecture historian who is also one of the founding members of the Center for Crop Circle Studies.
We're not a religious cult. We're not a strange, wacky branch of the UFO movement. We are trying to use rational means to establish what's going on. And the first thing we learnt, and this year in particular, is that there are a few hoaxes.
I'm Dave Chorley, this is Doug Barr, and we are the two people that have created the crop circles in 1978 through to today.
The most impressive thing to me, and the reason why I actually stopped and listened to what they had to say, was not really what they told me, but what they did in the field. Because when they did the demonstration out in Sussex at Chilgrove, the formation itself was quite messy, but it was amazing how quickly it happened. In 45 minutes, this huge formation was laid down, and that's even accounting for the fact that half the world's press were tramping around it as well with them, asking them for interviews at the same time.
But Doug and Dave had only done a few of the hundreds of circles that had been done, and from the evidence, their public demonstrations in broad daylight, they weren't very good at it. But no one really knew what hoaxers could do and what they couldn't do. And so I thought, well, here's an ideal opportunity for a scientific experiment, and the best way to do it is through a competition.
Biologist and author Rupert Sheldrake did organize a competition held earlier this year. The challenge was to see if anyone could create crop circles that could not be identified as hoaxes. The circles were made at night, and the next day, the contest winners demonstrated their techniques.
What we found was that the standard of artificial circle making was much higher than most people had expected. These people could do very well. The standard was very high indeed, and the most surprising thing was that people could do all this in complete darkness with making very little noise.
I flew the site the next day, and the aerial pictures that we took show some of the centers of these formations displaying exactly the characteristics that the genuine circles have displayed, and exactly the characteristics that many of the experts have said couldn't be done by people. Things like making rings without having a hole in the center where somebody stands. Things like producing a radial effect where the crop splays out from a central point. And the team that won and the team that came second and third produced really marvelous formations which the judges were very impressed by.
So what they show is that many of the features of crop circles could be hoaxes, but they don't show that they are hoaxes. And I mean, the analogy that I find most helpful is the fact you can forge a $20 bill doesn't prove that all $20 bills are forgeries.
The first and primary feature, which is evident in the genuine phenomenon and not in the hoaxes, is the spiraling fingerprint.
Colin Andrews heads up the Circles Phenomenon Research Group in Brantford, Connecticut. He has co-authored 2 books on crop circles and is believed to have visited more actual crop circle sites than any other researcher.
This particular screen shows clearly the difference between the fingerprint, this is the print at the top here, of the genuine phenomenon, the real phenomenon, and all of those hoaxes which we're hearing so much about these days.
Andrews believes that the most important patterns to be studied are those where the flow of the crops changes direction within a single circle, a pattern no human has yet been able to duplicate in public.
I think the single most convincing argument for a real phenomenon and against the hoax are the effects that the phenomenon are having upon the plants themselves. Dr. Levingood, a well-known physicist in the United States, has discovered changes in the structure of the plants themselves, in the cell structure of the plants, molecular structure of the plants on a number of continents.
When a formation hits, it just knocks the heck out of the embryo. They don't grow. The seeds don't develop.
Dr. Levingood has discovered that the cell structure of the crops within a formation are distinctly different from undisturbed crops nearby, and that this new cell structure seriously alters the crop's growth.
Let me get this straight. A plant that is in a formation undergoes an internal change so that seeds taken from that plant grow a different kind of plant or an altered plant?
Altered in both the growth rate and the germination. In some cases, it increases quite significantly.
Some people maintain that hoaxers
created not only some, but all of these formations. You buy that?
Oh, God, no. No, this is utterly ridiculous. No. If they had that kind of energy, they wouldn't be wasting it out in the field making impressions in a crop. It'd be a new kind of energy distribution, let's say, that I have never heard of.
Mathematician Gerald Hawkins is another scientist with an intriguing theory. Professor Hawkins made his mark in the 1950s when he came up with an explanation for Stonehenge, still accepted today. Now, Hawkins has devised a mathematical formula relating the crop circles to the notes of a musical scale. Help us understand that. You're not suggesting that because there's a relationship between the ratios of the crop circles and the ratios of musical tones that you can somehow play the crop circles.
I'm not saying that the crop circles are musical. I'm saying that they follow the same mathematical law as the major diatonic scale. No natural physical process that we know will generate the diatonic scale, which is, of course, the white notes on the piano. Therefore, the only theory that we can put forward is that it's done by human beings. It's all a hoax. But they're clever hoaxes, and if it's not a hoax, then we have a major scientific problem on our hands.
Professor Hawkins has studied the ratios of the sizes of crop circles and found the same ratios between notes in the diatonic scale. If the music doesn't seem listenable, then it seems to imply there's something beyond music being communicated here.
Yes, it could be a copyright insignia of the primary hoaxers or the crop circle makers, and perhaps they may use this later for further information transmission. But I'm not going to predict what crop circle makers will do next.
Dr. Hawkins, you're implying that if even one of the crop circles is not the work of the hoaxer, that science will have to rethink everything?
I'm afraid so. You only need one in this case, and you have a mystery.
What, of course, stands out clearly now is that we have the uncomfortable fact that this intelligence is almost certainly not human. And this is where people become extremely nervous. The media becomes very nervous. The press becomes extremely nervous. They don't like mysteries like this. One of the reasons that some thinkers have thought might be behind this is the position of the Earth in terms of the terrible damage that is being done by man. Could we be dealing with something which is trying to warn us?
Either it's very skillful hoaxers with a tremendous sense of humor, or it's some non-human intelligence that's completely off the scale of anything that we've contemplated so far. But if they are communications of Gaia or nature or aliens or whatever, if they're communications of some kind from a non-human source, it's not quite clear what they're saying. Their main message so far seems to be, watch this space.
Are we any closer today to unraveling the mystery of what or who created the crop circles? Joining me now is George Wingfield, Director of Field Research and founding member of the Center for Crop Circle Studies in London, England. George, welcome to Sightings.
Hello, Tim.
The crop circles have changed over the years. The shapes have changed, the number have changed. Have you learned anything from those directions?
There's no doubt at all that these are of some sort of intelligent origin, and this appears to be non-human.
What do the circles seem to be leading toward?
I think they are leading us towards an understanding of some other level of intelligence which is not human.
Do you believe, George, that the crop circles are an ancient phenomenon, that they've always been there, they just haven't been accounted for by modern means?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think the crop circles started appearing in quite recent times, probably less than 30 years ago. There may have been a few before that, but very, very few.
For you, do the crop circles inspire hope or fear or merely curiosity?
Well, they certainly inspire hope. I believe whatever is causing the circles is something which is benign. I don't believe there's anything hostile or evil here, which is what some people would have you to believe.
George Wingfield, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim.
And we'll be back with more Sightings in just a moment.
Coming up next, what sinister spell has cursed the royal family for 600 years?
You can't escape it.
We reveal the secrets of the royal curse next.
Sightings is brought to you by Alka-Seltzer Plus Cold Medicine. Relieves your tough cold symptoms. It's tough medicine.
Here's where Alka-Seltzer Plus fights tough colds. With tough congestion. Tough aches. Tough sore throat.
This is why you need a tough medicine. Alka-Seltzer Plus Cold Medicine. The leading cold pill only relieves congestion, but Alka-Seltzer Plus relieves congestion, sore throat, headache, body aches. That's tough medicine.
You bet it's tough.
Alka-Seltzer Plus Cold Medicine. It's tough medicine. For a cold with a cough, try Alka-Seltzer Plus Cold and Cough Medicine.
Just because you go all out, doesn't mean you got to stink. Not if you're wearing this. And here comes your chance to prove it. And you will, because Old Spice works. Man, does it work. Fights wetness, kills bacteria. The proof?
Hey, hotshot.
You're looking at her.
Old Spice antiperspirant for great odor protection. You demand proof, not promises. Saturday. Experience the terror of a drive-by shooting.
28 rounds were fired into the house.
Cops in Denver, an all-new episode Saturday. It's not a night at the opera, but a perfect body slam can be a beautiful thing. Saturday night's main event, right after Cops, Saturday on Fox.
In the past 2 years, Britain's royal family has endured an unprecedented amount of scrutiny and negative press. And some people are not surprised because they believe the House of Windsor is suffering under an ancient curse. Are the Windsor curse and the current royal troubles just coincidence? Or can a curse really create scandal, hardship, and even death? A curse is one of the most ancient forms of ritual still surviving today. It can be an elaborate spell or hasty words. King Tut's tomb was believed to be cursed, and some of those who entered it did die under unusual circumstances. The Hope Diamond, the largest in the world, is also thought to carry a curse. But can people really be harmed by something that many believe is merely superstition?
Curse is magic, black magic. That is a negative wish that can be made by word of mouth, by saying something that would harm somebody. Anybody can be victimized. Anybody is vulnerable.
Throughout this century, Britain's royal family has been the object of scandal and tragedy. From the abdication of Edward VIII to the bloody terrorist attack that killed Prince Charles' favorite uncle. Recent revelations about Princess Diana's unhappy marriage and Fergie's impending divorce from Prince Andrew are just the latest misfortunes that some believe are caused by a little-known royal curse. If such a curse exists, could it explain why, for the first time, the role of the whole British monarchy is being questioned, and some are even calling for its end? In 1986, speculation arose that the personal and public misfortunes of the House of Windsor were due to a centuries-old curse. It was believed to have first taken its toll on the Queen Mother's family in the early 19th century at their ancestral home in Scotland. Rumors about the curse surfaced after it was revealed that two nieces of the Queen Mother, thought to be dead, had actually been hidden away in a mental hospital for over 40 years. The nieces, Nerissa and Catherine Bowes-Lyon, are also first cousins to Queen Elizabeth, who is a direct descendant of the Bowes-Lyon family.
The fact is that the Queen has an enormous number of cousins, and if you looked through the list of them all, you would find all sorts of, unfortunate characters. So too, there were two nieces of the Queen Mother who it was understood and indeed published that they had died many years ago. And what happened was that they were born mentally deficient.
What actually happened in 1986 was that both these women were alive and well at this stage. It is not known whether or not the Queen Mother knew about their existence. It was a scandal at the time because it left a tarnished image on the woman that was otherwise known as the nation's favourite granny.
The origin of the royal curse is believed to date back to the 17th century and Glamis Castle in northeastern Scotland. Glamis is the ancestral home of the Bowes-Lyon family. Here in the 1600s, the Lord of Glamis Castle made an error in judgment that many believe the current royal family is still paying for.
One of these stories is a result of the feud that existed between the Ogilvy and the Lindsay family. And the story says that a group of Ogilvies were fleeing from the Lindsays and came to Glamis and asked for shelter. And the story says that what he did was to give them shelter in a small room in the thickness of the wall, but then he closed them in, and eventually that room was walled up, and of course they died a terrible death.
The Ogilvies were entombed in Glamis Castle for over 100 years. When their chamber was finally opened in the 1700s, a grisly discovery was made.
They had been so desperately hungry before they died that they'd even got to the stage of eating their own limbs. At least one of the skeletons had his teeth around his forearm.
Some believe that when the wall came down, a curse was let loose upon the residents of the castle, a curse conjured up by the murdered members of the Ogilvie clan. The first manifestation of the curse is thought to have occurred in 1821, with the birth of the then Earl's firstborn son, Thomas Bowes-Lyon, the great-great-great-uncle of Queen Elizabeth.
He was a, if you like, a hybrid between Quasimodo and Phantom of the Opera. His entire body was covered with hair, almost like an ape. He had no arm, well, very small arms and very small legs. And when his father, the 11th Earl, saw his son and heir, he was so horrified that he banished him from his sight.
And the story even goes that he lived to be 100 years old, which would mean that he was still alive in 1921.
There is a sort of infamous story about the Glamis monster, but frankly, I don't know anything about it. I mean, as far as we are concerned here at Glamis, it simply never happened.
The curse of Glamis Castle has never been openly discussed by the royal family. Any discussion about the curse is vigorously denied by anyone employed by the family.
Family take very strong exceptions to that particular story. And again, as far as they're concerned, it's a load of rubbish.
It is interesting that it's the way to get a very, very frosty royal look is if you mention this monster and any story about it in the presence of the Queen Mother or any of her immediate family.
They've never actually commented on the story on the record. But when the Queen Mother's biographer, James Wentworth Day, went to interview Countess Granville, the Queen Mother's sister, in 1967, shortly before her death, she simply turned around and said that she was never allowed to discuss this, and her father and grandfather had point-blankly banned them from discussing it.
If a society is strongly believing that curse can affect you, then it must, by its very nature, affect. You can't escape it, you give in.
Will the curse ever end for the royal family? Or are they destined to eternal tragedy because of the murderous act of one of the Queen Mother's misguided ancestors?
Some historians suggest yet another possible reason for the royal curse. At Glamis Castle in 1537, Lady Glamis, the beautiful widow of the 6th Earl, was accused of being a witch. She was burned alive, and ever since her death, strange supernatural phenomena have plagued the castle.
Coming up next, does the cousin of the Loch Ness Monster lurk in the depths of Lake Champlain?
Swings his entire body around and lifts his neck and head out of the water entirely.
I've got the worst cold a human being ever had. I've got a major presentation tomorrow. I've got to rest, and I'm out of NyQuil. I could take these, but I'd still be up all night coughing, which means I'd be a wreck for the presentation, which means I could get fired. But what am I going to do? Go an idiot and ask? Could I borrow a cup of NyQuil?
Once you know what NyQuil can do, nothing else will do.
With its V6 engine, smooth, quiet ride, and easy front-wheel drive handling, the newest Mercury will, quite frankly, remind you of some cars you've driven before. That's what makes it so different. Introducing Mercury Villager. If it was just another minivan, it wouldn't be a Mercury. All this and the quality of a Mercury.
I could tell something was wrong the minute I saw him coughing. Poor Timmy, he was coming down with a cold.
I'll be right up. Can you get me a tissue?
Mom, could you give us some Vapor Rub, too?
So I rubbed Vicks Vapor Rub on his chest and his neck. The penetrating vapors work fast to relieve his cough and nasal congestion. So the next morning...
Where's the coffee right here?
Hey, look who's up.
Vicks Vapor Rub. Breathe the vapors. Breathe the relief.
Tonight, L.A. Law's Corbin Burnson is a famous psychic. Make that ex-psychic.
It's easy to foresee somebody's death if you're the killer.
You and Lieutenant Marshak are on a case so mystifying.
This is a clue.
Only a mind reader could predict the outcome. And all new Likely Suspects next.
Hi, Larry Keither from Metro Toyota. You know Metro Toyota is the #1 Toyota dealer in all of Cleveland. You know why? They give you great service, great selection, great price, and great deals. And I'll tell you, we sell all makes and kinds, and we sell all kinds of people. Just the other day, a doc walked in the showroom floor. He said, hey, how much is the new 93 Tercel? I said, less than $8,400. He said, great, I'll take one. I said, how are you going to pay for it? He said, put it on my bill. No, seriously, folks, why don't you come into Metro Toyota and find out why 40,000 other satisfied customers have.
On a recent special edition of Sightings, we reported on Operation Deep Scan, the latest scientific search for proof of the existence of the Loch Ness Monster. Now, an update on the findings of Operation Deep Scan and information about a lake monster sighted right here in the United States. Operation Deep Scan, the most comprehensive and sophisticated search of Loch Ness to date, did come up with an important new sighting. Using sonar, an unexplained creature of large proportions was tracked through the murky lake for more than 2 miles. Sightings of a similar nature have also occurred in Lake Champlain, along the New York-Vermont border. Recently, increased attention has been focused on the lake after 3 separate eyewitnesses captured video of what they believe is Champ, the Loch Ness Monster's American cousin.
It was a huge black mat. It was just monster. It was scary. It was that big.
Up came the neck and the head, literally like my hand is doing. It turned and it looked at me, and it turned and it went right back down into the water.
He swings his neck around and lifts his tail up, swings his entire body around and lifts his neck and head out of the water entirely. Does a loop and, a whole big arch like this in the water and dives back in.
A Sightings investigative team is currently monitoring Lake Champlain. We'll bring you a full updated report of our findings in the coming weeks. Input from viewers is an important part of our Sightings investigations. If you've videotaped or photographed what you believe to be paranormal activity, our Sightings investigative team wants to know about it.
To report your sightings, call the Sightings hotline at 1-900-740-SIGHT. That's 1-900-740-SITE. Each call 75 cents a minute. Average call lasts 2 minutes, and you must be 18 years or older. Again, the Sightings hotline is 1-900-740-7483.
You're just in time. If you hurry to Red Lobster, you can get one of our 3 new trios. Enjoy it.
Thanks.
Like our seafood trio, sweet snow crab, shrimp, scampi, and broiled fish. It's just $9.99. So good. We've also got a big new shrimp trio and a new mixed grill. 3 trios you'll love for just $9.99. So hurry in for something great. Tonight at Red Lobster.
Forget about tug of war with your pantyhose. Nothing's more fitting than Legs Classics.
Cleaning toilets is a lousy job, so I invented 2000 Flushes Blue to help you. It's loaded with detergents, cleans and deodorizes automatically, up to 4 months. Try my 2000 Flushes Blue. Cleans your toilet with every flush.
Oh, Jeff, not feeling good, hon. When Jeffrey catches a cold, we see the pediatrician.
I love my pediatrician. He's my dad.
He recommends Dimetap Elixir.
Doctors have recommended the Dimetap brand over 200 million times. It relieves sneezing, nasal congestion, runny noses.
And Jeffrey really likes the grape.
Doctors recommend Dimetap for their families and yours.
We have a live-in doctor. He recommends Dimetap Elixir.
On the next Sightings, from the newly accessible Russian Republic, startling eyewitness evidence of bizarre extraterrestrial contact. And then, a special update on the Iceman. What ancient secrets has he revealed? On the next Sightings.
Join us next time for new investigations into the unexplained. For Sightings, I'm Tim White.
The world's top wrestlers battle for championship gold on Saturday night's main event, right after Cops. It's a night of crime and punishment, hosted by Al Bundy. Tomorrow, coming up, a renowned psychic is murdered. Who did it, and why didn't he see it coming? You solve the mystery when L.A. Law's Corbin Burnson guest stars on Likely Suspects, next.
Possible interpretations. The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information. Tonight on Sightings, from the Russian Republic, our team of investigators captures startling videotape images and returns with eyewitness evidence of bizarre extraterrestrial contact. Then, is the ghost of Whitechapel a murder victim of London's infamous Jack the Ripper? And can science reanimate the Iceman by cloning? The special update next.
Welcome to Sightings. I'm Tim White. The defeat of communism in the former Soviet Union has had wide-ranging consequences. For our Sightings investigative team, it has meant unprecedented access to secret documents and exclusive interviews about one of the most controversial UFO sightings in history. In the first of a series of reports from inside Russia, our search for the truth about a mysterious place known as the M Triangle.
The Republic of Russia is the heart of the new Commonwealth of Independent States that was once the Soviet Union. On a daily basis, new information is released to the people of this country about the previous government's clandestine activities. One of the most unlikely activities was a well-organized government effort to research UFO phenomena. And today, that activity is spoken about openly at the Russian Space Center, especially by those who have been close to the Russian space program, like former Colonel Marina Popovich.
We are presently standing at the Cosmonaut Training Center of Russia. It is where all the cosmonauts are still trained, even today. Some of the training includes the proper protocol in cosmonauts dealing with UFOs. As a colonel, I used to be a terrible skeptic, but when I see the government programs dealing with UFOs, I can't ignore this evidence. I've seen photos pilots have taken of saucers attacking planes. We're also now aware of recurring landing sites. I have absolutely no doubt that UFOs exist. It is impossible that in a universe this large, that's expanding so quickly, with new stars and planets being formed, that we are a unique planet that sustains life.
A team of Sightings researchers set out to uncover new information about the Soviet government's UFO research efforts. Information that had been long suppressed was coming to light. Even as our investigation began, a guard involved in a routine examination of our credentials was eager to tell us about his own UFO experiences.
1.5 years ago, I was standing guard here at Lenin's tomb in Red Square when I got a message over the radio. There was a UFO flying over Spassky Tower. Come quickly. When I arrived, I looked, but it had gone away. But there was definitely an object hovering above the tower for several minutes, one militiaman said. In the old days, we would be frightened to talk of such things. But today, there is an openness. In fact, there is even a TV show on now about such things.
Once a week, Russians tune their televisions to UFO, Unannounced Visit, one of the most popular programs in the country. It deals with UFO mysteries, and its host is Alexander Miachekov, a respected journalist and ufologist. It was from Alexander that we received our first information about the one UFO story that has captured the imagination of all Russia for the past 3 years.
We have a very interesting and mysterious area around the city of Perm. The incidents that happened in that area are hard to believe, so unbelievable that it is hard to compare that area to any other area of anomaly. That area is called M Triangle. The journalist Pavel Mohartov has been there, and I'll tell you, he had unbelievable experiences there and developed new, almost superhuman abilities after visiting the triangle. It's absolutely fantastic.
We visited with Pavel Mohartov, the journalist who first broke this story of the M Triangle. He's a man with no formal scientific training. He believes he encountered mysterious forces in the M Triangle zone that gave him new abilities and knowledge. The knowledge that would eventually lead him to the Russian space program.
I grew up a slight man. My health was never good. I was even kicked out of the Russian military because I was too frail.
This one here is proof that he was discharged from the army for health reasons.
After I was discharged from the military, I worked for a newspaper as a reporter. I started reading letters about the M Triangle zone.
He found documents in the archives that one of the KGB agents started to write reports to his superiors that strange phenomena started to appear.
There were many UFO sightings, sudden insanity, and dangerous levels of radiation. My editor sent me there to cover the story. Wild feelings came over me, strange photos were taken, and many in the group fell ill.
These are the photos taken at night. That's what they saw during the night, flying and hovering above them.
For me, the M Triangle story is good. I developed great knowledge about aerospace and about physics, and my health improved. I quit the newspaper and was immediately accepted into the Soviet space program. The M Triangle changed my life. I am no longer slight. Now, I am a cosmonaut.
The M Triangle is an area considered to be a hotbed of UFO activity. It is located in a remote area 600 miles east of Moscow in the Ural Mountains. Eyewitnesses have reported strange craft, mysterious light phenomena, and encounters of the third kind with translucent beings. There are even journals and books devoted to the ongoing sightings in the M Triangle.
When Muhartov first wrote about it, I was skeptical. It was too obvious that everyone who lived in the area saw all this extraterrestrial activity. Many suggest that the area is high in mercury deposits, and this is causing hallucinations. But could it be to the extent that people are seeing signs and letters in the sky? There must be something there.
Before our own sightings investigation at the M Triangle, we stopped at the Commonwealth Ufological Center, a government agency on the outskirts of Moscow dedicated to UFO research.
Each day we process 15 to 20 UFO reports at our offices, including those from the M Triangle. We know of the dangers of this zone, and that science has not been able to establish the truth about UFOs in the zone. But that doesn't rule out the health hazards. My advice to you is to get in and get out of that dangerous zone. It's just not safe.
Working in Russia was made more difficult by the lack of provisions we found available. This is a typical grocery store in Russia during business hours, a grim reminder of the upheaval still going on in the new republics. There may be a free market now, but red cabbage is still too expensive for most shoppers. The harsh conditions bear silent witness to the character of the Russian people who endure this hardship on a daily basis. After a 2.5-hour jet flight into the Ural Mountains, the research team flew an additional 90 minutes by helicopter. We agreed to comply with the government's request that we remain in the M Triangle for 24 hours only. The government warned us of dangers there. People who had reportedly gone mad, lost their eyesight, or disappeared completely. We first landed in a small village just outside the M Triangle to see if we could find eyewitnesses to the bizarre phenomena in the region. What we found was a village out of the 1890s with people who told stories right out of Star Wars.
I was walking my grandmother home when we both saw a red flash coming from that zone. Lots of my friends have seen that too.
Mysterious things that fly in the sky here are common. I don't even listen anymore to such old news.
I've seen these saucers numerous times. To say that they are nonsense is nonsense. We know what we see.
We found no one who had been adversely affected by the reported paranormal activity. We then proceeded on the final leg of our journey into the M Triangle, accompanied by Emil Bakurin, ufologist and author of the Russian bestseller, UFOs, Explanation of the Unexplained.
I've written a book about the zone because there have been so many strange experiences here by believers and skeptics alike. Near our tent, one group saw translucent fireballs that chased them into the woods and burned them seriously. Only 17 meters from here, a glowing object stunned a research group. One of the men later committed suicide. We often see groups of UFOs fly past this field. Sometimes they disappear, sometimes they land and leave radiation.
The UFOs sighted here have yet to be fully explained. The strange light phenomena, however, are thought to be the result of geomagnetic anomalies evident in the area, known to scientists as lightning balls.
We've used very sensitive equipment that measures and reacts to electricity in a battery from as far as 100 meters. But the same piece of measuring equipment wouldn't react to those energetic balls that we've observed. Therefore, we conclude energy is not of an electromagnetic nature.
The light phenomena are best seen at night. Our investigative team brought special night vision cameras, and after several hours, they photographed what can only be described as startling.
George, did we see a satellite? What do you think that was?
No, a satellite did not do this like this.
What was it?
I don't know. It cannot do the trajectories like this in the sky, like this and like this.
The strange streak of light never reappeared. A frame-by-frame analysis offers more detail, but gives little insight into its origin. It may have been a shooting star or a satellite. However, there is little debate among the Russian UFO community that something beyond rational explanation is occurring in this remote region. And there is no better proof than Pavel Mohartov, the man who claims he gained secret knowledge that transformed him from journalist to cosmonaut number 152 after visiting the M Triangle. Most of the people we talked with in Russia believe UFOs are operating in the M Triangle. However, off the record, a few scientists offered another possibility. They claim that the Soviet government has been secretly testing a new breed of weapons called psychotronic weapons that immobilize an enemy by creating realistic mass hallucinations. They suggest that eyewitnesses in the M Triangle may have actually seen something that wasn't really there, because they were unwitting participants in a top-secret military experiment.
Coming up, our ghost investigators uncover an apparition haunting Whitechapel, London.
It was just something I couldn't explain, but it was frightening.
Was she a victim of Jack the Ripper?
Sightings is brought to you by Cool Whip Whip Topping. Cool Whip's the one that makes everything so whip-smacking, lip-smacking good. Cool Whip.
What makes everything so whip-smacking, lip-smacking, good? Cool Whip's the one, that whipped creamy taste. Cool Whip's the one.
Today they ran my legs off. I thought my knees would buckle. I think these helped. I felt these little things, these wonderful little of energy spurring me on. They feel like lead.
Leg sheer energy pantyhose. You got it, or you don't.
I'm wearing them tomorrow.
I think kids today need to learn responsibility. Mine have dish night, and they do a great job. So there's no food like little tomato seeds left stuck on the plates. They always pre-rinse, and they never overload.
No matter who does the dishes, Cascade does the dirty work. Dishes washed without sheeting action are left looking dirty, but Cascade with sheeting action gets them so clean they're virtually spotless.
Perfect. Every night should be dish night.
If you don't tell us, we won't know. Right, Fox 19.
You can't imagine the terror of being caught inside a tornado until you experience it for yourself. An all-new Code 3 After Cops Saturday.
Blaine and Antoine are cooking up something special for Thanksgiving.
Smack it, flip it, rub it down.
Damon Wayans returns on an all-new 1 hour in Living Color Sunday.
The 10 Bells is a pub in Whitechapel at the East End of London. Haunting phenomena have been reported there for the past 100 years. During our own investigation at the 10 Bells, we uncovered evidence that the paranormal activity there may very well be related to a notorious murderer who has never been found. The 10 Bells has been a favorite meeting place in London's Whitechapel district since 1754. And for the past 100 years, it has also been a favorite haunt for ghostly apparitions, spotted by owners and customers alike.
It was just something I couldn't explain, but it was frightening.
Haunting is a form of communication.
We first brought our investigation into the pub's dank cellar, where many people have experienced haunting phenomena and apparitions. Sightings asked renowned psychic investigator Marion Dampier-Jeans to record her impressions at the 10 Bells.
There's quite, if you like, a bit of a tragic sort of place, but spirits are definitely in here.
This is the door that we can hear banging during the night, and you kind of get a funny kind of feeling of presence.
And I know that spirits have showed themselves to landlords who's been here.
So on a number of occasions we heard footsteps. We'd come upstairs here and we'd find nothing.
And I just feel totally, completely distant. The whole atmosphere here is very different. It's very disturbing, if you like.
About 5 months ago, I was here managing the bar. After about 8 or 9 days here, I went down to the cellar. When I got down to the bottom of the stairs, I went over to the right. Very briefly, I got a glimpse of a woman in sort of old-style clothes.
I think she comes to what is known as the old grounds, where she might have been, where she might have existed.
It gave me just as much a fright, you know, really frightened, I've got to be honest.
I would say she's from about 56, 18, something, 60, whatever. It's around that era I'm in.
She's been spotted downstairs on numerous occasions by previous managers.
I still feel that there was a murder committed, but again, you know, I'm not quite sure who did the murder or why the murder was taking shape or place.
This place used to be frequently used by the ladies of the night, going back to Jack the Ripper's time.
Young lady, 5'2" tall, she said lives.
It's been proved that Elizabeth Stride did drink here.
Marion had provided an important clue to the identity of at least one apparition, the name Liz. And indeed, Elizabeth Stride, a prostitute, was a frequent customer here in the late 1800s. On September the 30th, 1888, Stride, known as Long Liz, was the third victim of Jack the Ripper. Could it be her restless spirit that haunts the 10 Bells today? Our psychic investigator believes so, but we also called in scientific investigator Tony Cornell for his opinion.
I mean, people in poltergeist cases and hauntings, they see things and hear things. Now, that's okay for them. It's real to them. But for it to be real to us, we want it on film.
We set out to try to film the haunting phenomena, but our camera operator was stymied.
As we came into this little room we are in now, the recording fault in the viewfinder was going berserk, is the best way to describe it. And so we've now come in here again to play it back, and we just started up, and yes, it's still showing strangely in the viewfinder.
Psychic investigator Nella Jones has worked with Scotland Yard on a number of cases. We asked her to walk through Whitechapel to see if she felt a psychic connection between the hauntings and Jack the Ripper. We also brought in Don Rumbelow, Ripper historian and the owner of one of the alleged murder weapons.
I'm pleased to have possession of it, but I don't know about proud. I mean, it's such a macabre weapon.
This is definitely the place. I would stake my reputation on that.
It has a thumb grip on the blade for cutting upwards. This is how you can tell that it's different from other knives of the period. Well, if Nella felt something here, there's a very good reason for it, because this is where the body of the first of Jack the Ripper's victims was found on the night of the 31st of August, 1888.
Claiming no knowledge of where the murders had occurred, Nella led us to this site, but would not work with Rumbelow's knife.
Take it back, please. I don't want to know. I don't want to know about that. If they could feel what I feel when I touch that, they wouldn't even want to look at it.
Documents, letters of the time, contemporary memoirs. This is evidence. Using, with due respect to Nella, using a psychic is not proof.
What's new in this case is really what's old.
It was author and historian Paul Begg who was finally able to shed some new light on this dark subject.
30th of September 1888 was the night of the double event when Jack the Ripper killed 2 women within an hour. The first of those murders took place along this street.
In fact, a street not far from the 10 Bells pub.
It's an interesting case because it's the one instance where we probably have a witness to Jack the Ripper in action. A man named Israel Schwartz was walking down the road. In front of him was another man, and ahead of both of them, standing in the entrance to a yard, was a woman. And as the second man approached, he attacked and assaulted the woman and threw her to the ground. Israel Schwartz probably saw Jack the Ripper committing his crime, murdering Elizabeth Stride, who was found dead in the alleyway about 15 minutes later.
Because there was a witness, the murder of Elizabeth Stride was key to Scotland Yard's investigation.
The most important piece of information that's come to light in the last couple of years is what we call the Swanson marginalia. And these notes were written by a man called Swanson, who had overall responsibility for the investigation of the crimes. And in those penciled notes, he names Jack the Ripper. He says that the Ripper was a man called Kosminski. If the police at the time were right, and if we've understood the information that we've got correctly, Aaron Kosminski was Jack the Ripper.
Our ghost investigation at the 10 Bells, near the site of Elizabeth Stride's murder, poses intriguing new questions about the identity of Jack the Ripper. Foremost is the ghost of Long Liz trying to communicate some important clues. Is she trying to add her voice to those who believe Eric Kosminski is the bloody murderer known as Jack the Ripper? And if police believed Kosminski was the Ripper, why wasn't he arrested?
Now, because Aaron Kosminski had never been tried, had never been convicted, they were not able to release that information to the public. And that's why this has always remained a mystery.
While Eric Kosminski is considered a prime suspect, Scotland Yard still holds files on 2 additional men they believe could be the real Jack the Ripper. But will we ever know for sure? Some psychics answer yes and suggest we look more carefully to the ghostly presence in London's East End.
Coming up, can science bring the Iceman back to life through cloning?
The idea of cloning human beings is an interesting one.
A special update next.
Now, for sinus sufferers, the makers of full prescription strength Actifed introduce new Actifed Sinus, daytime, nighttime. The only sinus relief system that makes it simple to treat sinus pain right, day and night. The daytime formula breaks up sinus congestion so you can breathe without making you drowsy. The nighttime formula is maximum strength, so you can rest.
Your sinus is better?
Oh, yeah.
New Actifed Sinus, daytime, nighttime. Treat sinus pain right, day and night.
Wow! Doesn't anyone sit down to a good hot breakfast anymore? When I was a boy, we'd gather round the table for some nice warm cream of wheat. People actually talked to each other, discussed plans for the day. Nowadays, everything is rush, rush, rush.
So, Grandpa, what's your plan for the day?
Why start out with cold cereal when you can have the warmth of cream of wheat in an instant? Now try new cinnamon toast.
Toothpaste to me was basically boring. I used the same stuff for 15 years. And then my daughter brought home Arm & Hammer dental care gel from a slumber party. And what a wonderful feeling. My teeth felt fresh, clean from the dentist, and my mouth felt so healthy. And then I read more dentists recommend Arm & Hammer than any other baking soda toothpaste to help promote healthy teeth and gums. I still see my dentist twice a year, but now I get that fresh from the dentist feeling twice a day. All of a sudden, toothpaste isn't boring anymore.
Get Arm & Hammer dental care for that healthy, fresh from the dentist feeling of clean.
The most daring and death-defying stuntmen on Earth are women.
The most fun I ever had with my clothes on.
Cindy Crawford hosts Stunt Women World Tour, Sunday at 7, 6 Central. Tonight, dating show studs, phone sex girls.
My clothes feel so tight.
Killer bees.
Help me! Somebody help me!
And rosebud tattoos.
So they enough to kill for?
This case has it all.
Dating in the 90s. It's murder.
And all new likely suspects coming up next.
How deep did Nationwide's Auto Parts cut prices with a big sale this week? To the bone. The big Nationwide sale. Get it before it's gone.
Now through Saturday, get fantastic savings on Tradco Gasline Antifreeze. 4 for just $1. Nationwide's antifreeze only $1.49 after rebate. And Kendall Multigrades just 62 cents a quart after rebate on a case. Now through Saturday only at Nationwide's.
Get it right, Nationwide Auto Parts.
The discovery in 1991 of a remarkably preserved human, thought to be more than 5,000 years old, has captured the attention of scientists around the world. Dubbed the Iceman, archaeologists are studying his remains. Anthropologists are learning more about his behavior, and genetic engineers want the Iceman for experiments in cloning.
He is considered by many to be the most important archaeological discovery of all time. A unique window to what we were like 1,000 years before the pyramids were built. He's called the Iceman, a miraculously preserved human specimen who froze to death over 5,000 years ago and literally remained on ice until his discovery last year in the Italian Alps. Unlike mummies and other bodies found after burial, the Iceman was flash frozen as he lived, resulting in a kind of ancient snapshot of the late Stone Age.
He doesn't look quite so dead. He's still got the flesh on him. The pores of the skin are there. The fingernails are there. Even his eyes are there. He happened to freeze with his eyelid open, and you can see this cloudy eyeball kind of glistening just inside his head.
Actually seeing this frozen man from the distant past has inspired many to consider what science could do to bring him back to life through cloning techniques, which have proven successful in frogs.
Frogs were cloned, and they were all identical extuplets of the original frog that was cloned, but that frog was a tadpole, and when you try to clone the adult stage of that same frog, nobody could do it. Something happens to the cells, to the DNA, that makes them unclonable.
The idea of cloning human beings is an interesting one, but it's a largely theoretical concept at this juncture.
But theoretical concepts, science fiction to some, often become science fact. So what could we expect if cloning experiments with the Iceman are successful?
You could take those genes, put them in the ovum from a woman, implant that in her uterus, and it would grow up and it would be essentially the identical twin of the Iceman. Unfortunately, he would not know a thing about life in the late Neolithic.
Cloning the Iceman's body may become a future reality, but cloning his mind and the memories it contains is likely to remain the ultimate scientific puzzle.
Input from viewers is an important part of our Sightings investigations. If you videotape or photograph what you believe to be paranormal activity, our Sightings investigative team wants to know about it.
To report your sightings, call 1-900-740-SIGHT. Each call 75 cents a minute. Average call lasts 2 minutes, and you must be 18 years or older. Again, the Sightings hotline is 1-900-740-7483.
A whole paper towel can be too much or too little. Now there's Selecticize, the Bounty you customize. Special smaller sheets. Only Bounty lets you pick out 1 sheet for small jobs, 2 sheets for regular jobs, 3 sheets for large jobs, and it's 50% longer than regular Bounty. Selecticize, the Bounty you customize. A quicker, thicker, bigger rubber. Bounty Selecticize.
Yo, Frosted Flakes fans, got a sweet spot. Hit it with a sweet shot. Sweet as honey gold.
Bring it on.
Crispy corn, whole grain wheat.
That's the stuff.
It's just fine, crunchy and sweet. It's crunch time. Touch of honey is what it's got. Go for it. Wanna hit your sweet spot? Hit it with a sweet shot. Sweet as honey gold.
Every day, you've got the choice to feel your most beautiful with Salon Selective.
Choose to be your most beautiful.
With shampoo levels and conditioning types, choose your combination and feel like you just stepped out of a salon.
Rust. Rust stains drive me crazy.
Try the Rust Specialist. New X14 Mineral and Rust Remover. Unlike leading bathroom cleaners, X14 dissolves rust without scrubbing.
X14 Mineral and Rust Remover. It's better.
On the next Sightings, the hunt for ghosts leads us to Alcatraz, where our paranormal investigator uncovers haunting evidence.
There are at least 100 ghosts here.
Plus mass UFO sightings in Mexico on the next Sightings.
Join us next time for new investigations into the unexplained. For Sightings, I'm Tim White.
Sunday at 7, 6 Central, supermodel Cindy Crawford hosts an hour of death-defying action and spectacular stunts on Stunt Women World Tour Sunday. And coming up, he's handsome, he's sexy, and he's way dead. Who killed the dating show stud? You solve the mystery on an all-new Likely Suspects next.